Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon. And J.P. Marzullo, the Honorable J.P. Marzullo, is still out fighting the communists in New Hampshire. He's rounding them up. He's throwing them back over the state line into Massachusetts where they belong. Hopefully he'll be with us next week. I'm not making any promises, but hopefully he'll be back next week and he'll have a rundown of all the communists that he threw out of the state. As always, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club, the oldest sports shooting club in New Hampshire, located right here in Manchester at 1732 Lakeshore Road. We have an open membership. We do not have a waiting list like a lot of the other sports shooting clubs in the state. You can find us online at wilsonhillpistol.org. You can get our training schedule. Next training is the fundamentals and safety training, which is fast handgun. We're from the Second Amendment Foundation Training Division. On April 25th at 8 a.m. you can sign up online. And if you'd just like to join the club, you can come to our meeting. It's at 7 o'clock on the first Wednesday of every month. Okay, that was a mouthful. Lately, we've been talking about town elections. The town elections are all over now, but we've been talking a lot of town-based issues. And now that we have some new people in office in these towns, some folks are kind of digging up some wonderful things about how the way towns operate and how they sneak in new taxes and basically use scare tactics in order to get the voters to approve new expenditures. And so with us we have from Goffstown, we have Shannon Carey.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
You've been digging into the budget process over in Goffstown.
Yes.
And one of the things that we've talked about a few times is, like I said, the scare tactics that are used when we go to these town meetings. Whether you're an SB2 town or a town meeting town, you go to the deliberative session of the town meeting, and the sky is falling.
Oh, yes.
Right? And we have war after war after war in every town in this state for new money for the schools. The schools are always crying poor, and they're always blaming it on the state. Oh, the state's taking money away for these education freedom accounts, but when we look at the numbers, you're finding that's not the case. It's so why the scare tactics? What's going on? Tell us what you.
Well, first of all, I just have to throw in here that I am running for state rep, and one thing I did look into was education funding, and the state actually this past year sent the most money back down to towns that they ever have.
Right.
So they're not.
But there's not a single school board in this state.
No.
Who acknowledges that they've got more money this year than they've ever had. Mm-hmm. Not a single school board is acknowledging that.
No, and I don't think they ever will, if you want the honest truth. That I think between teachers unions and the different, entities that are involved in public schools, it's just not how the hamster wheel turns. If you don't, and that's the thing. Today, tax day. They're currently a public hearing right now up at the State House to, I think it's CACR 12, which would be in a constitutional amendment on the ballot in November for people like us to vote on that would officially put in our Constitution that we cannot have an income tax, which I'm hoping makes it to the ballot. But when you think about it, okay, if you gave an income tax, supposedly that means that our property taxes would go down.
No.
That's the
never
company
been the
line.
case in any state
Correct.
in this nation. Whenever they say that they're going to tax over here so that they can reduce over here, the reduction never takes place.
It never takes place.
I learned this very early on in my life. I lived in Virginia, and they put up toll booths, and it's the old school toll booths where you drive by and you throw a quarter, right?
Yep.
And They said, oh, these are temporary until this bond is paid off for this highway. Guess what was never temporary?
Never.
Once the bond was paid off, wow, that's a source of revenue, right? So nothing ever goes away. And we're always promised that if we charge you over here, that we will reduce you over here.
Well, look what happened with all the COVID era funding. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think there was anything wrong with helping towns and states and cities on the financial end of things, because the entire country was shut down. So I do get that. But now people are able to say, because that COVID era money went away for certain things, like school, a lot of different school programs were funded that way. Now the school districts are coming and saying, you don't support this, then you don't support children. You
Right.
don't, the state should be picking up the tab. The state's not doing their part.
No,
It's like,
no. See, that's the problem.
Exactly.
Is you have a bunch of administrators who didn't use the money properly.
Mm-hmm.
They got this COVID money, this free money, which was my tax dollars.
exactly. It's never
They
free.
got this free money, and instead of spending it on offsetting the losses that were taking place, they used it to create new stuff.
Exactly.
They created a new program. They hired 4 more people.
Yep.
Oh, we got this extra money from the government, and so now they don't want to fire those people.
Right.
Those people, that money was temporary. It was always intended to be temporary, but they treated it as permanent. Oh, as
Exactly.
long as we get our teeth in the ground here,
We'll be
then
fine.
we can continue to demand that extra money.
So, and that's kind of what, circling back, it kind of ties into what I've been noticing with town budget. So I'm really kind of surprised that the school budget passed in Goffstown, but the town budget is what ended up failed. So in Goffstown, we're in a default budget, especially because I think the town budget was 28 or 29 million, and the school budget was around 55. So, it's like double the amount. But I watched the first meeting after voting day, because when I was here last time, I talked about the warrant article that I put forth to limit the unassigned fund balance, kind of a policy direction, which did pass. And I've been tuning into, like, are they going to talk about it? Because it's non-binding, so they don't have to follow it. But I've been interested to see if they're willing to have a conversation, like, hey, 60% of the vote said this is what we should be doing. Maybe we need to talk about it. And in that process, that first meeting, I got really confused. I was telling you before, like, I'm a high school graduate. I went to cosmetology school. I'm not a rocket scientist. But I know a default budget is maintaining last year's spending, plus adding in any contractual obligations. So when we approve a CBA, like a collective bargaining agreement, we're tied to that, and that has to be calculated in. Even if we don't pass a budget, it still has to get calculated in. So I'm listening, and the fire chief in Goffstown, all the department heads got up, and they're talking about what they're going to have to cut to make default. And I immediately was like, wait a minute.
Why would you have to cut anything?
Our default budget is like $800,000
It's already
more.
paying for everything you had last year,
But
plus raises.
even then, it's like it was $800,000 more than our actuals last year. Now, granted, some of that is contractual stuff. I think it works out to be like almost $500,000 more than what we actually spent last year. So the fire chief got up, and out of his mouth he said, as most people know, Goffstown doesn't budget overtime effectively. And I kind of like perked up. I'm like, all right. So he starts talking about how he has to come up with $149,000 for their employee compensation in order to meet default.
Well, see, that's the thing. Overtime is exactly that. It's overtime.
Now overtime,
So
it's the way default budgets are calculated.
But what I'm saying is if you're complaining that you don't have enough money to pay overtime, then don't make people work overtime.
Well,
right?
so
I mean, there's
Yeah.
you play within your limits here.
Well, so this is where I ended up in this huge rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, like I keep hearing them say we're fully staffed. So then why is there so much overtime?
Right.
Right? So as I'm digging, I find out, I think, don't quote me, 2019, we accepted some sort of grant money for whatever, okay? But in the condition of that grant, we said we were only going to do dual certification for our stations. So they have to be certified as a firefighter and certified as an EMT. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the fact of the matter is people don't want to do that. They just don't. Like, I want to come and work in the fire department. I don't want to have to go do more training over here to do this over here. I want to do one job and that's the end of it. So we've had a hard time with retention. Now, overtime and the way default budgets get calculated, they can't include those one-time expenditures, like overtime. So as I'm digging through all of this, it's like, well, we're not even budgeting to our actuals. So in that process, that led me down another rabbit hole. We overfund or over budget our benefits lines in Goffstown, and I'm finding many towns do this. So vacant positions, you need to account, you know, if we're going to hire somebody this year for the police department, you need to account that we're going to pay them in the budget. But they're over budgeting, assuming that whoever they hire is always going to pick the highest insurance plan, the highest this, the highest that. Now, that's resulted, let's see, just in one line last year, one transfer that happened out of that line was $184,594.97. And it went to cover fire department overtime, highway overtime, benefits lines for, so.
Wait, so, but that wasn't what the money was for.
No. So instead of budgeting our budgets on actuals and getting our wage and salary lines a little bit closer to where is actually happening, if we were doing that, when we hit default, we're never going to be exactly where we need to be because overtime is a one-time expenditure. But if we were not paying for some of this from other lines and we were putting it where it really should be, our default would be closer to where we need to be. And then the town wouldn't be able to say the sky is falling. So in theory, the sky kind of is falling because they're not budgeting effectively.
But they're taking all of this money from their budgeting for, like you said, benefits for people who don't exist.
Correct.
Why are we doing that?
That's a really good question that I know.
Because it sounds like those people, they're ghosts, that they have no intention of ever filling those roles. Because this sounds like fraud to me. Well,
so my husband's on the budget committee. And this year during the budgetary process, he noticed like, man, like the actuals are really, really off on these benefits lines, like by hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're over budgeting. And he brought it up during the budgetary process, and, you know, you get the company line, you get the kind of political answer from the town about why they do what they do. I could speculate why they do what they do, but it's not any conversation I've had with somebody. In my opinion, by over budgeting certain lines, when voters vote things down, when voters don't support something, you now kind of have money over here that...
But that money's not slated for you to go and play with when the voters don't want you to use money for that item.
You would think.
If the voters vote you down and say, no, we're not spending money on this, it is not up to the boards, whether it's aldermen or selectmen, to go and say, well, we're going to do it anyway, but we're just going to do it from money over here. You can't, that's...
So you would think, and I actually spent a lot of time going back and forth with our town this past year. Last year, being a Goffstown resident, you might remember, we voted on a budget last year, and the budget did pass. Now, in that budget, the select board's stipends was zeroed out. Down to zero. Meaning
right.
The
you
select
need to be
board,
a volunteer, just like every other politician in this state.
My husband's on the budget committee. He's paid nothing. He's serving to serve the community. End of story. So we started noticing they're transferring to pay those select board stipends. So I dig up RSAs, and it's like, if the governing body on town meeting day,
Which is the voters.
vote a budget and a line of zero, technically by law, they can't transfer money into that line. So I present this to the town. Well, it's because it's in a sub-account. So this is where, yes, we have local control, and people say, like, I think there was like over 1,000 bills at the State House this year, and people are going,
It's going to be 1,300 this year.
it's a waste of time. No, because sometimes it's to correct this stupid stuff. So the average citizen of any community in the state of New Hampshire is not a forensic accountant. And they're not, well-versed in the RSA of this and that, which I'm not either. But when you start to dig into this stuff, you realize some of these bills that are being presented at the State House, in my opinion, are correcting things so that local control really is local control. Because most people I talked to all year said, but we voted that they don't get the stipend, so why are they paying it? It's in a sub-account. The RSA states it can be moved if it's in a sub-account. So that's why this year in Goffstown on the ballot, it stated, do we want to fund the select board stipends or not? And when we said no this year, now the purpose of the line is gone, so they can't ever transfer into it. The purpose, we deleted the purpose on voting day.
And that passed this time.
That passed.
So now they can't play that game.
They can't play that game.
So we've taken away one game they can play.
Yeah, that's very true. It's hard because, one game, yeah, out of all the games that they can play. The hard part is, like, I live in Goffstown, so I dig into Goffstown stuff, but, I've dug around in some of Bedford and some of the other towns. This isn't just a Goffstown thing. This is like a statewide thing where towns, to a point, and like I'm saying, this is just opinion, not fact. Towns don't want to be told what they can and cannot do. Not even by the voter.
Well, that's a different. The towns should have that ability. The voters, the governing body, need to have that ability of local control.
Yes.
But the problem is, you've got these elites who, once they're there, they think that they're in control and they think that they know better.
Well, and from the state aspect, when you look at local control, there's a lot of gray area for towns to operate in. And that's ultimately what happened with the select board stipends. Was the answer I got was last year, we didn't vote to get rid of the purpose of that line. Therefore, being a sub-account, they could move the money. So it's like it's a gray area where the average person is going, zero means zero.
Right.
But towns are able to say, it's a gray area, we can operate there.
All right, so I'm appointing you our gray area digger-upper.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of gray. There's plenty of gray. And the hard part was with the budget going into default was the budget committee, my husband brought forth the discussion about how we over budget for benefits lines and vacant positions. And the budget committee actually did agree and vote to cut back, not the total amount that they were over budgeting, but a really big portion that they were trying to put, kind of over here. The budget committee said, no, we're not doing that. But when we voted, this is the downside, when we voted as a town to have default budget, that money, the changes that they made, they're gone now. So that money is still there for them to do what they
this year.
For this year. And we have a couple new budget committee members. So my hope is, they'd be willing to go back and look at things like this, like the benefits line and the vacant positions and how we fund them, and try to work to get our town to be operating a bit more where our actuals are, as opposed to pie in the sky.
So tell me about this. So we've taken a line item out of a benefits budget line item, and we have repurposed it.
Yes.
This is where I'm getting confused with the whole purpose thing, right?
Yeah.
We have the town voted to get rid of this purpose line item for the selectman's stipend, right? Mm-hmm. Now we have this purpose line item it's for benefits, yet we're repurposing it. We shouldn't be allowed to do that.
So this is
why are we allowed to repurpose something if the whole point of them saying, well, you didn't get rid of the purpose, so we could still use money for that purpose?
So one thing I struggle with...
But when money is slated for a purpose, it shouldn't be able to be moved to another purpose. So how did it get moved from an empty staffing position into the overtime line item for the fire department?
So
and I'm not bashing the fire department.
no.
I'm bashing the monetary gains that are being played.
Yes. And I do want to give, we have a new fire chief in Goffstown, and I do want to give him credit. Like, he had no problem saying, we're not budgeting for overtime effectively. Like, we're in this position because we're not budgeting effectively. And I give him a lot of credit for saying that, because it's not easy to get in front of a select board and say, we need to be doing this better. But ultimately, what it comes down to, and I don't know if this can be changed at the state level. I haven't dug in enough to know if it's like a citizen petition warrant article thing. But I don't want to say every New Hampshire town, but I would say most SB2 and town meeting towns operate with a bottom line budgeting system. So a large portion of the lines that are in our budget, we as voters can vote to say no, right? But then after the fact, throughout the year, the select board, who we elect, might say, but this is more important, so we're going to move money to pay for that. So ultimately, we're voting on a budget, and there are some things that are 1,000% set in stone. Like if we had a capital reserve fund to purchase a tanker engine, if we vote to put money in that account, there is nothing else they can use that money for. Legally, we as a town voted for that account to be that specific. So they can't ever move that. But the everyday budget, the copy paper, the road salt, all that stuff, those are all lines that they can move to what they feel.
Right, so where are they moving these things? Because every year in my town and in a whole bunch of other towns, every year, and we see this towards the end of the snow season, every town in this state runs out of their road salt budget. And I've just got this gut feeling that says that during the summer and during the fall, we're not, it's going to be an easy winter, so we don't need that much. I feel like, because what happens is, come February, everybody's looking for spring, everybody's looking for that, and the time between snowstorms starts to spread out. But then we get hammered with a big one, and everybody goes, where are the trucks? How come they're not out yet? And what's happening is the towns are delaying sanding, salting, plowing for an extra 12 hours in order to avoid dumping out all of that road salt that they're running low on and avoid paying overtime to all of the DPW workers. And so towards the end of the winter, when a snowstorm gets really bad, they actually delay, and the entire state is doing it. And it happened this year with the last big one, the last week of February or something like it, the first week of March.
It's that heavy kind of wet snow.
Right? It was the worst snowstorm we had. And all of the cleanup was delayed by at least 12 hours. And people were, I was out on the interstate and it hadn't even been touched, right? But the same went for all the towns. And I heard people complaining, like up in Pittsfield, they were complaining. And my gut tells me that the towns stole from those funds early on because they were betting on an easy winter.
They do.
So is this happening?
Yes. And this is where, like, I play a little bit of devil's advocate. I know the devil doesn't need an advocate, but at the same time, like, there are situations that I'm like, well, that makes total sense. You know, like a prime example, so one of the insurance benefits overages that they moved $7,254 to the library project, which was dealing with the library lake that they get there in the parking lot. they had actually come up with most of the money, and I think they even got like a matching grant from the state to cover a big portion of it. But there was a small portion that, like, they kind of got stuck on. Now, in my opinion, it would have been a complete waste of time and money if they had done most of that project but didn't finish it properly. Mm-hmm. That's a pure waste of my tax money right there. So they were able to move money from the benefits line to finish that project so it was done correctly, so that our money didn't go down the drain. So there's situations like that where I go, that makes sense to me, like, you know, but then I look at things like, you know, we're spending $184,000 to cover $74,000 of fire department overtime.
So
that's a lot of money.
So there's over $100,000 there. That 74,000 minus 180, or 180 minus. There's
well, and then 89,000 went towards the public works. 6,900 went towards the library. It ends up being a lot of money. That if we were doing our budgets and not constantly moving things, you know, it's almost like the game you play with the ball under the cups, and you're shuffling things around. It happens so much in every town that I feel like most towns, Goffstown included, don't even know where the actual goalpost is anymore.
It also feels like there's enough moving parts that it's going to be easy for fraud to occur and for some excess to get lost somewhere.
Well, 2018 was it? The school had their $10 million overage. How does stuff like that happen and go unnoticed?
And where did that money go?
Supposedly, we all got like a tax offset. But then, of course, the following year, they reevaluated all of our properties and raised the...
Of course.
So it's not, it kind of like was a wash, in my opinion. At least for my home, it was like a wash. I didn't walk away with any money. But it's just hard. There's situations where I understand moving the money, and I think towns there's a level of flexibility that towns need to have in those situations. But it almost feels like, like when you put a kid in a candy store that's never had any of it before, they're just going to go nuts. And if you, what do they say? If you give an inch, you take a mile. So it's almost like, yes, there's situations where they should be able to move money, and they have done that. And then they're going, well, if we can move it for this, maybe we could move it for that, and move it for that, and move it for that. And then you kind of, this isn't anything like that I could find, this spreadsheet, this isn't anything I could directly find on the town website. I had to go dig through budgets. I had to dig through town reports. And I had to input it in all myself to figure it out. Who has the time for that?
So is stuff like this, does it come out in an audit? Like, we have to have an audit system for towns. Don't towns get audited on a regular basis?
Well,
because a forensics accountant who audits this stuff would be able to find these things.
So our town's financials are audited by the state every year. Every town in New Hampshire does that. And that, if you go to your town's website, Goffstown, whatever town, doesn't matter, it's the MS 535s for your town, and that's your town's audited financial numbers. But they're not going in like a forensic accountant. And a couple years ago, a resident, Brian Mazer, put forth a citizen petition warrant article to have an efficiency study done. Granted, the town would have to pay for it, but that really would have somebody coming in and going, you're spending money here, this is the outcome. Like, that is really what we need to have done, but that I don't think any town would want to jump on board with doing that.
Well, it's not about the town jumping on board. We need to have the voters jump on board with that. And
well, they passed it, but it's getting it done is the...
Oh, so it's been passed.
Yep,
but no one's paying attention to it. It's being ignored.
Pretty much.
And how can we do that? Why is that okay?
Because we as residents don't hold them to task. And it's hard. I can come down on people and say they don't show up to meetings. But it's like, well, my kid had this concert and this and that, and not everybody has the time to go and sit at all these
And
meetings.
that's what they're counting on.
Yes, that's exactly what they're counting on. So that's something I've been trying to do. The group of conservatives in Goffstown have been trying to be more vocal and try and get information out. Apparently, we caused quite a stir with our tax impact signs before the election. I don't know if you saw the big, giant 4x8 signs said your taxes, you know, if you vote yes on everything, this is how much your taxes could go up. Apparently, that wasn't well received by the town and certain members of certain committees because they felt we were
So
being
what?
inaccurate.
What was inaccurate about it?
The
fact is, if you vote for everything, your taxes will go up. The problem I have with, and I don't know how to solve it without denying people the right to vote in their town.
Right.
But the problem that I have is that a majority of the town are people who rent. Mm-hmm. Renters don't pay taxes.
Well, they do and they don't.
But they do complain when their landlord raises their rent.
Exactly. They may not get a property tax bill from the town that they live in, but they're seeing it in what their landlord is charging them. So I'm not sure. I've been trying to get people to understand, like, it's fine that you rent. Like, yay for you. Like, I hope you love your apartment. But what you're paying also pays for the school and pays for the roads, because your landlord has to pay that property tax bill. So these things do matter to you. These budgets do matter to you. It does affect you. It affects your bottom line just like it affects my bottom line. So it's getting people to understand that and getting people to
But when you start being reasonable and educating folks on why these budget line items are important and why some budget line items just don't belong in there.
Right.
You get the sky is falling business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you show up to these town meetings, you show up to the school board meeting. I mean, we haven't even talked about the school budget. I don't know if you've done any research on that.
Not a ton, but enough.
But you know, I was at the school board deliberative one year, and I was completely disgusted by the fact that they section off a section of the auditorium for people who are not allowed to vote. They don't live in town.
They're just members of the public.
They're members of the public.
Yep.
But what it is, it's all the teachers and administrators who don't live in the town, mm-hmm. right? But all these teachers and administrators who don't live in the town, they brought with them half of the senior class from the high school.
Yep.
And they had spent plenty of time brainwashing the senior class into because these are high school students who have turned 18 and they're old enough.
My daughter's a senior. She just got to vote
They
for the
can
first
vote,
time.
right?
Yep.
But they've been brainwashed by all of these people who don't live in our town mm-hmm. into standing up and speaking for these absurd expenditures that the school does not need to be doing, right? And which evidence and history tells us that you don't just throw more money at this particular item and expect higher grades and higher pass rates and all of that proficiency.
And you think about it, it's the definition of
But now
insanity.
you've got a whole bunch of these kids mm-hmm. who, you know, very moldable minds mm-hmm. who are captive in school every day, who don't pay taxes and they don't pay rent. Yet they're trying to convince, and they're being convinced to vote for money, for expenditures, for people who do pay rent and do. Right, I understand that they're adults now, and they can, and this is part of the learning process. But at the same time, you can see all of the coercion taking place in order to get us to spend more money. And as soon as we say no to it, they play these games.
Yes. Well, and that's where
it's so maddening.
As parents and I'm not crazy old, but elder members of the community, it is our job to not fearmonger. Like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of conservative talking points I could drill into my daughter's head, who just turned 18 and voted. Like, I could drill into her head and, you know, mold her this way. what we've been trying to do is, like the teacher's contract was a prime example. I support teachers. I think our teachers are the ones who need to be paid. But when our superintendent is making more than the governor, that's a problem. The money's not getting where it needs to be. So when this teacher's contract came up this year for Goffstown, I really did some digging into it. And it was like, this is a really crappy contract. This is not a good contract at all. So my daughter, who's getting ready to vote in her first March election, but I love my teachers, Mom. I support them. Why aren't you supporting their contract?
There's nothing wrong with supporting teachers, but the fact is, you've got people who are guaranteed annual raises every year out of my paycheck, and I don't get a raise every year.
And that's what we had to
the
sit down
problem.
and talk with her about. As I, pull up the contract, and it's like, look, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband works, and it's like, he gets evaluated every year. And if he happens to get a raise and if he happens to get a bonus, it's all based on his performance. It's all based on that evaluation and what did he do for the company this year? What benchmarks did he help them meet that qualifies him to get more money? And so he's breaking all this down for her, and he's going, so because your teacher was there for an extra year, therefore they should get X amount more dollars. He said, that's not the case for me. He said, that doesn't. So once we sat down and explained to her, like, yes, we need to support our teachers, but you have to look at the whole picture.
And when the Goffstown's proficiency rate is 43%, right? We're not even reaching half the students being proficient.
Nope.
Right? It's 43%, and then the school board comes out and says, "Wow, we're above the state average." Well, the state average is 42%.
Yeah, but that's like the gray area. Those are the games they can play. It's the games they can play. It's not technically a lie because it is true, and if they don't ever have to assign a number to it, it just sounds really great to the taxpayer. Well, we're higher than the state average. Do you know what the state average is? Do you know what our number is? People don't take the time to dig and look.
And they count on people not taking the time, and they count on being able to just, hey, before you go home tonight, make sure you encourage your parents to vote for the school budget to support your teachers, and that's all they say. But the rest of the world, the rest of the public world, or the privately employed world, has to actually produce results in order to get a paycheck.
Exactly, and that's I did watch the last school board meeting, and I was pleasantly surprised. We'll see if they follow through with it. I had actually brought up to them sometime last year because my son's been in the charter school system for almost 5 years now, and I had made a comment like, why as a school district, they're charter schools, most of them, I can't say all, the ones that my son has been affiliated with, their proficiencies are better than the average public school.
They're much better, and they spend
way less,
like half per student on their budgets.
So,
and it's because they're not paying for all this overhead.
No.
Right?
But they're also
as much as a football program, a sports program here and there is good stuff, right? And it's good team building and it's good leadership building. That's not the important reason why they're there at school. And so if that's got to take a hit, it takes a hit. That's what privately funded colleges are for, right?
But it's also the fact that, like, they're setting a bar for those kids. My son is on the spectrum. When he was in Goffstown, he had a 504, had 1 million accommodations. We had behavioral issue after behavioral issue, disciplinary issue. Like, there was always something, right? And half the time this kid's not even in class because he's got to go have OT in this accommodation, right? Well, he enters the charter school system, and because they're publicly funded, they still have to meet the 504. They don't get to get out of those accommodations, right?
But you won't hear that from public school superintendents.
He has not used a single accommodation.
It's because they're using their money and their teachers correctly.
He has not had a behavioral issue since he's been in the charter school. He's on the spectrum. He has ADHD. This is a kid, for all intents and purposes, that should be a problem child, and he is an exemplary student because this charter school has said, you know what? Yes, you are on the spectrum. Some things are going to be challenging for you, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. We're just going to help you get there. Whereas a public school is saying, well, if you don't get there, that's okay. You're still a great kid. And charter schools and private schools.
It feels good.
It does. He has like a love of education that he hasn't had in a really long time. It's not pulling teeth to get this kid to go to school. He enjoys being there. And he's not failing everything like he was when he was in Goffstown. So I was pleasantly surprised when I heard the superintendent at the last school board meeting. He made a comment about how maybe they need to start asking families who leave the district almost like an exit interview. Like, what's not working?
My only problem with exit interviews, and it's across the industries, is once I decide to leave, if I've decided to leave because of something that my employer or the authoritative body has done, by the time I'm ready to leave, you no longer deserve any answers from me. I do not do exit interviews.
The hard part for me is, because I don't disagree with you on that in some instances, the hard part for me is like the issues that my family has
you're
had.
Absolutely right.
They could
finding
prevent
out why
it for
they're
other,
leaving is
you can prevent it
a
for
data
other
point
people.
that they need to figure out.
Yeah, because while no offense, I'm not putting him back in the district. We're not looking back. My daughter graduates GHS, June, whatever, and I'm good. I'm all set. But the issues that we did have with bullying and other problems that we had, if those things could be addressed for other children so they don't have to experience what my kid experienced, then to me, I'll sit down and have the conversation, because no child should have to go through what my child went through in our district.
It's a problem with all public schools.
Oh, yes. It's not just Goffstown.
It's a problem that's been around for decades. I mean, since before our lifetimes.
Yeah.
But it's gotten worse because of the lackadaisical attitude from the teachers.
Yeah.
And it's, because, well, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. I wasn't there when this thing occurred, right? And it's all about not making waves. Well, I don't want to fail this person. Like you said, well, you're still a good kid, even though
everyone gets a trophy.
Right? So it's the no child left behind business. Well, we're going to move you on to the next grade level. And we're going to graduate you anyway. It's that feel good, afraid to offend anybody business that has got to go away. We've got to get back to the school administrators like Strickland from Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
You've got to get back to these people and say, well, you're a slacker, and if you don't, get up to speed, then you're going to be held back. And we've got to not be afraid to do that. And as soon as we get a school administrative board, the teachers, we get everybody on board and everybody starts focusing on results, then results will also turn into a new social paradigm where the bullying won't be so bad. Kids know they can get away with these things because the teachers don't care.
Some of it also is parents not being involved, because I don't think this is something like happened overnight.
But whoa! There's a double-edged sword there with the parents not getting involved, because I, as a parent, when I get involved, it's none of your business what happens at school. If your child wants to be a she, he, they, them at school, it's none of your business. And we actually have a policy to exclude parents from what's going on in school. So we can't say that it's because parents don't want to get involved, because we have actual school policies that say we don't want parents involved. We want to be able to say whatever we want to your students. We want to hide the curriculum. We want to hide what your students doing at school. So when the teachers come back and say, well, the parents aren't involved and that's why there's a behavior problem. No. You actually have this policy over here where you are deliberately excluding the parents from what's going on at school.
But I think it's something that happened. I think it happened over time.
The teachers' union wants it both ways.
Oh yeah, but I think it happened over time. I think there was a period of time when, I'm not that old, I'm 42, but I can remember being in school and it was like, you can't behave in this class. We had was called the planning room. You couldn't behave in class. You had to go to a specific separate classroom that was monitored by one teacher, and the only thing you could do was schoolwork. There was no talking. There was no nothing else. And you could not be accepted back into your class until you came up with a plan for how you were not going to exhibit that behavior again or disrupt that class again, right? There were kids who would be in there all week missing class because they refused to come up with a plan. Well, tough. They still have to make up all that work. Too bad, so sad. But back in those days, it was like, if you can't behave, then you don't get to be here. Plain and simple. But then somewhere along the lines, you did have some kids that needed a little bit more help, that, autism started to come on the rise and things like that. There was more behavioral issues with kids. And so teachers had to step in a way in some instances, and then parents went, oh, well, the school's dealing with it. And then the school said, well, they're letting us deal with it. So it was kind of like this perfect storm that happened, and now you have policies that say, I don't want you a part of the discussion, because back in the day, you gave a little, they took a mile.
Yeah, like I said, they can't have it both ways.
No,
we
they
need to
can't.
go back to what worked.
Yeah.
We need to go back to when the United States was #1 in education, and not, what are we, in the 40s now? Yeah, something needs to happen, and the budgeting process and the games. I mean, I encourage. Most of the folks watching are here in Manchester. I encourage you.
They'll find it in the Manchester budgets, trust me.
Dig into the budgets. Dig into the details. Don't just take at face value what your aldermen are telling you. Listen to what the other folks on this channel are telling you, the folks right after this show.
And like
these things exist. There is fraud, and the moving of these line items is not okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I am a stay-at-home mom. I have a lot more time than most people. I can pop an earbud in and listen to a 3-hour budget committee meeting. The average person doesn't have time for that. But this is one thing the state of New Hampshire is great about, is meeting minutes have to be public. So you couldn't attend, you're in Manchester, so you couldn't attend the Board of Aldermen meeting. But you can go look at the agenda real quick and see what was up for discussion. And if you figure out, oh, wait, that pertains to me, then you can go find that part of the meeting and watch the 20-minute clip as opposed to the 3-hour meeting and stay abreast on what matters. So there's ways to get the information. You just kind of have to be, they don't make it easy for you to find it.
Again, on purpose.
Oh, on purpose, totally. It's the way the system was designed. And I am no longer a favorite of a lot of people in our community because I ask questions and share information. And
anybody who gets exposed, doesn't, anyone who does the exposing
Oh, yeah.
gets the crap end of the stick here. So you're running for state rep.
I am. I am filling the seat, hopefully.
When is the primary?
The primary is in September, and our election is in November.
And whose seat are you going after?
So Sheila Seidel resigned. She had some health stuff going on, and she actually moved. She sold her home and she moved, so she wasn't.
So are we
the
empty right now?
Yes, the Board of Selectmen voted not to have a special election. They would have had to do that in order to fill her seat, which works out to be like $8,000 or $10,000 to fill one seat. And then they felt like, okay, by the time that person gets in, it'd be May or June, and then we're starting the cycle for the seat anyway. So they decided to leave it vacant. So I will be running on a slate with Lisa Mazer, Lisa's Ware and Goffstown, but Lisa Mazer, Ross Berry, Joe Alexander, Henry Geisen, and Sherry Reinfurt. They are the current Goffstown reps, and they're all running again.
That sounds like an all-conservative slate.
It is.
But
we have had all conservative slate for the past 2 years.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Judy Lanza was our Democrat state rep, and she actually was, I think Sherry Reinfurt took her spot. 2 years ago.
Good, good.
Yep.
What's the competition look like on the other side of the ballot?
Really good question. They have been keeping it really, really mum. I couldn't tell you who's running. I can speculate that I think Judy Lanza will probably put her name back in the ring.
Is there a deadline for filing?
It's in June.
Okay.
It's like the first 2 weeks of June, I believe.
Yeah, they'll wait till
they'll wait till the last
4 o'clock
minute.
on the last
Yeah.
day. So,
Yeah. But you know what? I was getting so involved with stuff locally that I was like, just get it all out there. So I've had my name out there for a while, and I've just tried to stay involved locally, try and stay involved at the state level.
So what else is coming up? You've got a husband on the budget committee. Any inside information?
There will be a joint meeting, I think May 5th, of the select board and the budget committee. There's some bad blood there. Some members of the budget committee think the select board presenting a 13% budget was not doing their job. And they've been very vocal about that. The select board doesn't like that.
Well, it's too bad.
Yeah, it's too bad, so
That's
sad.
the whole reason why these folks are elected to these boards.
Exactly. I think they just feel between the two boards that I don't know that they've ever gotten together and had like a joint meeting, and whether it's clear the air or really kind of this is our purpose and this is your purpose. I don't know if they've ever sat down together and done that. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea for them to all sit down and get on the same page of what their expectations are. I think it's really too bad that our select board has kind of come after some of the budget committee members who didn't support the budget, like at all, kind of as like they all should have supported it. You're on the budget committee, you should support the budget. And like my husband, he put the time in, he did the work.
The budget committee is to slash the budget, is to come up with the budget.
Well, to me, it's the
and
stopgap.
it's a committee because not everybody's going to agree all the time. That's the whole
Correct.
point of a committee.
Correct.
If you want 100% buy-in, then you only need one person.
Exactly. Well, and the chair of the budget committee at the very beginning of the budget season was like, I'm under no delusions that everybody's going to support this budget. If we do, great, but I don't think that's going to happen, and nor should it. Like, we all have to vote our conscience. I was like, Elizabeth DeBrule, great budget chair. Like, I love that attitude about it. But after the fact, there's several budget committee members that are like, you actively campaigned against the budget. It's like, but they were doing that during the meeting. Like, they were making cuts.
Right.
They were saying they don't agree with the budget in the meeting. It's not like it was a secret. So I don't know. I think they all kind of got to get on the same page. So let's see. There's that going on. Like I said, today was tax day, and they're trying to get a constitutional amendment on the November ballot to make it once and for all that there will not ever be an income tax in the state of New Hampshire.
Hopefully that's the case. So.
Yes.
All right. I was going to say one more thing, and I totally stopped. I did want to say, so we've been talking about Goffstown specifically here, and you know, Goffstown is right next to Manchester. In fact, Goffstown has a Manchester zip code.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, all of our fates are intertwined between Manchester and Goffstown, and so that's why
We're neighbors.
We have a lot of discussions with the surrounding towns on this show. But the big takeaway today is don't just look at your budgets or your default budgets when you're going in to vote. Pay attention to the line items. Pay attention to what happens after you as a voting body say no to something and then that something still happens.
Yep.
Or if you say yes to something and then it doesn't happen, because we've covered both examples here today where the town of Goffstown is supposed to have an independent auditor, a forensic audit, and it's been a year and a half and it hasn't happened. And it's because your administrators, the people that you vote for, your selectmen, your aldermen, are ignoring what the voters want. And you need to pay attention to that. You need to dig into it. And you need to go to the ballot next year and make it heard. right?
Yes.
Make your voice heard.
Yes.
So thank you, Shannon, for
Thank you
coming
for
on.
having me.
And hopefully you'll come back with some more details once you're a state rep.
That'd be nice, yeah.
All right. We'll see everybody next week.